I think we enjoyed.
All right, good evening, everyone. This month we are talking about the film FernGully. We watched it on Sunday. I'm sure some of you are listening in later have seen it. Probably have your own little comments. Feel free to let us know. Yeah, and so again, to talk about FernGully as it relates to ecology, most of it is pretty on the nose, but written for kids. What is anyone's initial thoughts?
I think I said it the other night. I thought I had seen it, but I did not remember 1 second of that movie. I'm pretty sure I had not seen any of it.
Yeah,
And so it felt like a early 90s,
Very
you
much
know,
so.
not quite Disney cartoon.
Yeah,
Felt like it's not what it was, it's off Disney cartoon. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, very much a, you know, kind of low key love story with some pretty cool environmental, you know, early 90s environmental messages alongside.
yeah.
of it.
Captain Planet. I think we mentioned.
Yeah,
it,
right. Kind of Captain Planet with fairies.
And it's also Avatar. Really, there's
Right.
a lot of,
Right.
except less. I mean, what's interesting about this one is, again, it's for kids, so there's less. It's less of a systemic thing, right? It's just the bad guy is, well, it's the it's Nexus,
Right.
but like the other place is just a machine ran by 2 guys, right?
Uh-huh.
And then they're
2
easily,
guys with very sloppy habits.
Right.
yeah, that.
Pizza all
Yeah,
over the
and then, but
dashboard.
they kind of realize that, oh, hey, what we were doing was a bad idea, and so it does end with this, it's easy to fix, just realize what you're doing, and,
Yeah.
you know, versus Avatar and other films that have more of that systemic bent to it, that you realize that, oh, no, this is a corporation, like there's a larger.
Right. Yeah. Dances with Wolves, right? Feels, when I watched Avatar, it felt like that was,
Yeah,
you know, Dances with Wolves with blue people. And so, which is not an easy fix, right? It's like just snap our fingers and that stuff goes away. But similar, right? I mean, and you know, back to Romeo and Juliet in terms of, you know, star-crossed lovers from different family, different perspectives, and so there was some of that in there too.
I kind of probably read in too much with the 2 of them, you know, showing some romance towards each other, but I kind of thought that was the human falling in love with nature.
yeah.
Maybe.
Well, and
I mean, because she obviously goes back to her fairy boyfriend
Right.
at
Right.
the end.
Christian Slater, right?
Yeah, right. Well, and I did appreciate that he does take accountability, right? He's like, okay, I need to go
Right,
back
yeah.
and warn people,
Yeah.
right? So he does, like, he doesn't just follow, he's like, oh, I found someone to love, I'm gonna follow that, like, and be part of, you know, this group.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, no, like these, like, I need to warn these people, and I'm the only one who can. So like, there is, I don't know, I felt it was a pretty good move that.
I thought it was interesting, speaking of Avatar, the tree, the shiny, sparkly, you know, tree with all the lights and the connections, and it was a very Avatar-like tree, pre-Avatar.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
wondered where Suzanne Simard's book
Oh,
fell
yes,
in
that's right.
1992. I mean, there was no book yet, obviously, but where her research was and how.
Yeah, no, her
That
research
might
would have been
be
out,
too.
at least her initial research would have been out by then.
Yeah.
I think she started in the 80s.
Wasn't there a connection between her work and
James
Avatar?
Cameron,
James
yeah,
used it?
did
Definitely
look
was with
did look
Avatar.
at her
Yeah.
writing as a
Uh-huh.
direct inspiration for his,
Huh,
so.
yeah, so maybe
Maybe
the
there's
FernGully people were also
also into
into
Suzanne
Suzanne
Samard
Samard. That's right.
or research.
Who were the FernGully, who was the director and producer and stuff?
Oh, man. Had it. Bill Kroyer. Who also did some CGI sequences for Tron.
The original?
Oh,
Yeah,
Whoa, all right.
Kroyer, Kroy.
Huh.
Interesting.
some other stuff.
Interesting. All right. So maybe there was some. Yeah, I was trying to figure out exactly the metaphor, the analogy was a little unclear, right? You know, in terms of were these the protectors of the forest or creators of the forest or just, you know,
Just random fairies.
that lived
just
in the
happened to
forest,
live
right,
there.
right, and
Yeah,
you know, and then the head fairy was the one that kind of put the evil creature away in the tree.
Right, right.
But it's like yeah, like you say, it's like, so what was the relationship of humanity to the fairies exactly?
Or is it like, I mean, does that speak to like our idea of needing power and needing to know who's in control? And nature, like, no, like everything is just
Yeah,
there,
It
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And if you like, if you actually live in harmony, you don't need to know who's the guardian of something.
Right,
Like,
right,
we're
right,
all
yeah.
guardians of,
Uh-huh,
you know,
uh-huh,
Well, yeah, because it seemed like the old fairy,
right,
it didn't seem like she was controlling anything. It just seemed like she was watching it happen.
Right.
And observing it and knowing that it was bad.
uh-huh,
It had some wisdom from things that had happened in the
Right.
past.
right?
There was the early scene where she was like trying to mentor, right? She was trying to tell the younger fairy, you know,
Oh,
when
yeah.
when I'm gone, you're gonna have to do this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there's a piece of that.
That is true.
Versus how much of that is just, you know, a plot device to also get you looped into what's going on.
Right,
Like,
right,
that's, I mean,
right, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Here's your explanation, right? Your exposition dump, so.
I mean, that's kind of
Right.
this, you know,
and make the
I'm
main
very much of a
character-
movie trope.
Right,
of
right, right.
how to-
Yeah, make the main character very relatable, I
Uh-huh,
guess.
and learning about all the things that we as watchers need to know too. What were the things you wanted to add, Marcia?
Well, I was just thinking about in the real world how we have handled some things, and the desert that I could think of was Australia, because when they cut the forest there, you know, they have the desert. I think in South America they still do have the forest. I don't think they've cut them all. But I was thinking also of Israel, where the desert was already there and they are making it bloom. They are planting olive trees. They have a drip irrigation system that they use. I just don't understand why we don't use a similar method, because it works so well.
Yeah, instead of the broadcast irrigation.
Yeah, it's a drip irrigation, and they have kind of so it condenses and falls back. They have a little, and it's individual plants. So that might be hard for a farmer to do, but like the olive trees that they're planting, you know, just use drip irrigation on those. And a lot of their trees and things, they've always used the drip irrigation. I was trying to think what other plants and things, but they do a wonderful job with drip irrigation and keeping the condensation so it goes back down to the earth in the plant and doesn't go out in the atmosphere.
Mhm.
And I just thought of that as, you know, maybe a way that we could handle some things,
Yeah.
especially if we destroy our forest.
Yeah, that's a good question. Is that a difference between a crop like corn or soybeans and an orchard? Can we, is it a different way to irrigate?
Yeah, the drip irrigation might work with an orchard.
I think, right? Yeah, if it works with the olive trees, you'd think it'd work with apple trees or whatever. Yeah.
It was interesting on the movie. I watched it with my grandchildren many, many years ago. They're all growing now. And the only thing I could remember about it, and I don't remember the fairy at all, was Zach when he was on the window of the monster looking at his friends. And I had that picture in my mind. And then when I saw the movie, it all came back. But
When he splatted like a bug on the windshield.
and that the people or the animals and things in the forest really were upset with what was going on.
How did your grandkids respond to it?
Well, that's what I was thinking. We laughed a lot at, like kind of a cartoon, but also I think it was serious for them as well. They knew what was going on. They knew that, the trees and things were being destroyed, and that wasn't really probably a very good thing.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting generational difference, right? I mean, I think there are definitely different assumptions of your grandkids' age and younger about how we need to take care of the trees and how this is just not always been the kind of thing movies have been about.
All of our grandchildren are very much nature lovers.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, our whole family is nature lovers.
I think that, we've had a generation of kids who have grown up on these movies,
Mm-hmm.
who probably have a better awareness than I do in my generation. Maybe it comes more second nature to them to think about, probably just seems like, well, that's a no-brainer. Why don't we do it that way instead of, how we're doing it now?
Yeah.
It does seem like there's more commitment, I think, to, moving away from consumerism and trying to be more green, conscious about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Again, these are the kids who have been raised on Captain Planet and FernGully. And well, one of the first.
And the Penguin, what was the Penguin movie that was very environmental? Remember that one?
Oh, with Robin Williams as the penguin, like the dancing
Is it
penguin.
live?
Robin Williams has been,
Like,
what's that?
was it animated?
It was
CGI?
animated. It was animated, yeah.
Animated, not CGI?
Probably. It was when my kids were grade school age, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Scamper the penguin. But I don't.
Scamper?
Yeah, do you guys remember Scamper
No,
the
I don't
penguin?
remember Scamper at all.
Yeah, it was. which I don't think it wasn't really environmental, it's just about little penguin who gets separated from his parents and he has to
Oh,
give back. I think it's like, it was like originally a Japanese film, and then
Okay,
it's like, then of course, you know, they have American, they do, voiceovers.
oh, Scamper is the first thing. that
Scamper is
comes up.
the, all right,
Oh, there it is. There's the picture of it.
that look right? That look like what your kids watch?
Well, it's the picture of it, but it doesn't tell me what the name is. World Environment Day, 6 movies you must show your kids.
Oh, interesting. What's on that list?
Okay, let's see. Avatar is the
Okay,
number
all
1.
right.
Finding Nemo.
Huh,
Is it gonna give me more? It gives me 2 of them. Where's the rest? Happy Feet.
Happy Feet.
Happy Feet.
Is that Robin Williams?
That's the penguin.
That's Robin Williams?
And I gotta look at IMDb. I remember Happy Feet was very on the nose with things.
Okay, is that Scamper? Are Scamper and Happy Feet the same movie?
No,
Oh.
Scamper was like from like late 80s, early 90s.
Oh, okay. All right.
What is the list?
What is what?
What is the list that you're looking at?
It was 6 movies that you must show your kids. 6 environmental movies that you must show your kids.
Okay, I'm familiar with Happy Feet and Nemo.
I'm trying to remember an overt environmental message about Finding Nemo.
I don't remember that.
Been a while since I've seen it.
It's a lot about the ocean.
Right, maybe that's it. It's just about, it's about nature.
Elijah Wood.
And does Nemo get lost and has to be found?
Ball, which is, I think, is that the lead?
And Happy Feet?
Mhm.
What did you say, Marcia?
Well, I said, didn't Nemo get lost and they had to find him and went through all kinds of different places to find him?
Maybe it's just because he was in the big ocean and it was beautiful and
Yeah,
there were
Yeah.
turtles. And all of
it's not a pollution movie, it's just,
Right.
here's the environment, here's how great it is.
Right,
Beautiful
right, yeah.
coral.
Yeah.
And yes, Robin Williams was in Happy Feet.
He wasn't Happy Feet. All right. I'm pretty sure I didn't see that movie either.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen Happy Feet.
That would be one we could watch.
There you go. Put it on the list. What else is on the list?
Oh, let me go back to it. Here are 6, and then it gives me 2, and it tells me I have to listen for the rest. So I don't think I'm gonna be able to
You're
help
not
you
gonna
with that
answer.
right now.
What's the earliest
Oh, read
In-
more.
environmental movie that you watched?
That's a
First,
good
the
question.
first one you remember.
It might have been Happy Feet.
Really?
Yeah, in 2006, it says.
Okay.
So probably, because I never saw this one.
Uh-huh.
Think of
Wasn't Finding Nemo before Happy Feet?
Oh, Wally. Okay, so now I
Oh,
got the rest
Wally,
of the list.
yeah.
I had to.
Wally
I had to
is,
have
yeah.
some.
Yeah.
And FernGully is number
FernGully's on
4.
it. Okay.
Over the Hedge. I'm not familiar with that one.
You know that one, Marcia?
No, huh?
really new film, like in the last 10 years or so.
Over the Hedge?
Yeah,
Well, this says it's 2006.
yes, maybe it has, I guess it's been.
Close to 10.
Again, it's showing your kids, so it's very like,
Yeah.
Nature
Right, right.
adjacent.
Uh-huh.
That was.
Is that
the
all of them?
6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Wally until like last year.
Really?
We had never watched Wally.
Oh,
It's always
it's
one of
so
those movies I
good.
always miss.
Yeah.
Wally is one that managed to not, to get the message across without like beating you over the head. with it.
Uh-huh, yeah.
Or at least it's pretty obvious, but it's not like, yeah, but it's not, it's obvious, but it's not like making you feel bad about it.
Right.
Like, there's a hopefulness at
Right.
the end of it, not a like,
Yeah.
you idiot,
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
how could you?
right, right.
I used to watch a lot of dolphin movies with the kids, grandchildren.
Uh-huh, yeah,
Were usually about saving things, saving, and taking care of the animals, the
right, right. Which Star Trek movie was it where they came back to save the whales? You remember that
I
one?
do remember that. I
What?
don't remember which one it was, but yes.
It was like, all right, let's see. Well, it
Gotta
wouldn't have
look it
been
up.
one, it wouldn't have been two, it wouldn't have been Search for Spock, right? Or maybe it was.
It might have been. Star Trek movie Save the Whales. We are not the first to search for this.
Yes, all right.
Or The Voyage
Okay,
Home.
all right,
So it
Voyage
is
Home,
Spock.
okay, all right. Have you not seen this one, Matthew?
I haven't seen any of the original
Oh,
ones.
the
It's
films.
1986.
86.
Wow, that's early.
Yeah. I've
Yeah,
only
see,
seen
that
the-
would be one of the first,
I've only seen the reboots.
Wow.
uh-huh,
Like the original Uhura, it looks like.
yeah, yeah.
Is in it.
Oh, yeah, all of them. They were, it
And
was all the
Jim-
original.
Yeah.
Kirk and Spock and, yeah, Leonard Nimoy.
It was one, yeah,
That was one of the first ones that I would have remembered. Hey, this is a different kind of message, right? The environmental message is a different thing. Which would have been before Captain Planet and
yeah, that's before
FernGully.
all those.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is, I mean, Star Trek was good about blazing trails like
Uh-huh,
that.
yeah, yeah. Right,
It wasn't environmental, but I remember watching Jacques Cousteau as a kid.
oh, right, yeah,
And
yeah.
just being in awe.
uh-huh. Yeah, I mean,
Ocean.
that's the youngest I remember was the kind of nature shows and stuff like that, right? What was it, the Mutual of Omaha,
Wild Kingdom.
Wild Kingdom.
Yeah.
that's it.
Yes. Oh
yeah.
my goodness.
Uh-huh.
That was the other one. On the one
They-
channel that we got.
Oh.
in Village, Kansas.
Yeah,
They did make an animated, the Lorax. I don't know when they came out.
oh,
Before
that
the-
is true.
Before the 3D one,
Uh-huh.
before
For the
the CG
trees.
one, but they made a like cartoon one back
Uh-huh.
in probably the 90s.
Oh, did they? In
Yeah.
the 90s? Huh. You know, I guess I'm curious about that because I think it's interesting how those messages creep into our national conversation, right? It's a little bit different. Different than Al Gore, right? I mean, that was a
Right,
different way of
yeah.
doing.
An inconvenient truth.
Right,
is
right,
that
right.
it's- Yeah.
And it was just a different kind of message about some similar, right? I mean, Wally is in some ways a similar message of as an
It
inconvenient
is.
truth, but it says it a very different way.
Right, and these kids' movies, you watch them over and
Yeah,
over and
yeah.
over,
Yeah,
which also is, you know, like you say, it gets in your psyche.
mhm.
Growing up, it was always like one of those films were on, and I grew up in it's weird to say conservative,
Uh-huh.
but in that more capitalist idea, and it's like, these tree huggers are trying to push their agenda again,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? And so
Yeah.
it was like, we didn't really watch those films, because it was just
Uh-huh.
like, it's trying to push
Yeah.
an agenda. And it's like, well, but wait, but it's an agenda that should be pushed.
Right, but do they have a
Like-
point?
But the-
And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, they-
Yeah,
what?
no, I could see that. I could
You
see,
know?
you know, when I was younger, maybe, you know, the church pushing back against the movie about fairies, you know, it was kind of a,
Right?
you know,
Yeah.
new agey, you know, we're
Oh, that word.
Tree
yeah, that
worship.
phrase.
you know, fairy worship, you know, I very
Yeah.
much so.
Yeah. Yeah.
This isn't a message that should be pushed. This is, you know, heresy.
Right.
Well, I watched a lot of animal stories with the grandchildren that, you know, where they were friendly with each other rather than enemies, you know, like the fox and the hound and
Yeah,
all kinds of animal stories where you didn't need to be afraid of the animals. They were something to be treasured.
right, right. Well, even back to Bambi, right? I mean, in Bambi, it's like the,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The
Like,
hunter
we
is
never
the-
watched
Right, the
Bambi
hunter's
growing
the
up
bad
because
guy.
it
hunter's
was
the bad guy.
anti-hunting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting, huh?
Again, it's just pushing an agenda.
You and I
Wow.
grew up very similarly, I
Uh-huh.
think.
But we did watch Free Willy. That was,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I would say is, I mean, it's not environment as far as ecology, but it's still environment of like, save, part of, not to really save the whales, that was a whole, you know,
Uh-huh.
mass
Yeah,
murder of them, but like the idea of, you know, man's dominion and, you know, the captivity of an animal for our pleasure, right? And then it's like this, no, it's not happy in this. you know?
yeah.
Of course, I think the reason is it's like, oh, that one whale wasn't happy, so yeah, it's okay to let it go.
Uh-huh.
And it's not,
It wasn't
but you don't look at it and go like, no, like, you do realize that
Let's shut
every
down all
single
zoos.
orca,
Yeah, right.
its dorsal fin curls around when it's in
Uh-huh.
captivity, like it's
Mhm.
because you're confining it
Yeah,
into a small space.
Yeah. Hmm. So what movies are out there for kids from a Christian perspective about caring for creation?
The problem is, and maybe I'm jaded,
Uh-huh.
is you can't call it Christian. Because it gets so on the nose and browbeating about too fundamental Christian, and this is where I say, no, now they're pushing their own agenda of what, of like, you can't name it, like, Christianity can't own that.
Right.
Like, you can't say, and we're Christian, like,
Yeah.
by doing that, you're actually limiting, and you're then making only Christians the good guys and everyone else, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
again, it's playing that same.
Yeah, well,
It's
even
a
back to
weird-
the Noah
it's a
movie,
weird
right? I
dance.
mean, it got a ton of pushback from the church. And it's a biblical story,
Right.
but the interpretation of it was not, was more environmentalistic, or it was, you know, some.
But you think back and you read like what Noah did, and it's like
Free Willy.
there's
Save the
like,
whales.
yeah, there's a lot of parts in it that aren't like literally the same. But like the overall message is exactly the same.
Right.
Like,
And Star Trek. The Voyage Home.
I need to see that now. I
Uh,
have not.
So you've not seen Star Trek 2 or 3? Spock?
Or the first one? No, I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any of them before. Like what? Like the new reboots with Spine.
Right.
I've been slowly going through the Next Generation.
Okay. All right. So sorry, that's a distraction. That's a topic for another day.
You'd think
Another
you'd think
podcast.
my personality would be like, you've definitely
Right?
seen
Star
that.
Trek.
Right.
15 Purple.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We need to have.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Well, so there was another Noah movie that was more recent, more humorous with the guy from The Office.
that's right.
Oh,
Steve.
yes.
Carell.
But it's Evan Almighty.
Steve
Evan Almighty, that's right,
Almighty,
yes, that's right.
it,
Uh-huh.
That's right. And it wasn't overtly environmental, but I mean, there was a big fat capitalist guy who was, you know, trying to control things and the dam was the issue, and
Oh, right,
remember the.
right,
Yeah.
right.
The dam breaks and.
Have you seen that one, Marcia?
Everything out.
What was the name?
Heaven Almighty.
I don't think so.
It is a loose,
Very
Uh,
loose.
a loose sequel to Bruce Almighty.
Oh.
Kind of a Noah in modern time.
Right.
Grandchildren to watch movies with, I see very little.
It's been a while since I've seen it. I can't remember if it's kind of irreverent and if there's inappropriate jokes or not.
Yeah, I don't remember enough about.
Steve Carell is on the line of
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
got
if
some
it can be. and-
less or
Right.
less appropriate
Right.
movies. But my sense was it was kind of a family
I think it was
movie.
Pretty,
Yeah.
yeah. I remember like Bruce Almighty.
Uh-huh.
I remember my dear friend telling her kids that it was probably sacrilegious, but
Uh-huh.
hadn't seen it, just made that assumption. And
Uh-huh.
then watching Bruce Almighty and going, wow,
Uh-huh.
no, they kind of get it.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
really good.
there's a couple of like every once in, like sporadic, adult jokes that,
Right.
Yeah,
They
right. That would
kind of
probably
go
go
over
over
the
their
kids'
someone's
heads,
head,
but yeah.
but-
Right.
but
yeah.
still be awkward.
But I thought, but Bruce Almighty kind of didn't.
Yeah, I don't remember, maybe a handful, but not many.
Yeah,
right?
being,
Yeah.
being,
Or not Bruce Almighty, I mean, Evan
Evan
Almighty.
Almighty.
Oh, Evan Almighty,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
and
don't
it seemed
really-
like it was even more family friendly.
Right.
Huh.
Bruce,
But
but
again, it probably got a little bit of pushback from some corners of the church. Because it wasn't
that's-
straight line enough.
well, that's the
of This
thing,
is what
like,
Noah is about.
if you
Right.
make a movie on Noah that follows scripture to the T, it's gonna be 10 minutes long.
Right, true, and no one will see it.
Like, what?
right, there's no way, yeah.
Because there's a whole bunch of parts that like it skips over, right? Like,
Right.
all right, he has to build the ark, or it's gonna be so long because it's showing him building it.
Every,
By wood.
every stuff in the, every animal that comes on, it's another 5 minute,
Yeah, so,
yeah.
That may raise more questions than answers, though.
Right, right, a 10 minute, every verse of the story, recreation. So what's the answer? Should we start making, creation care cartoons? Maybe that's what we can do as a church, is start making some, we need an
Veggie
animated,
tales of,
right.
of creation care.
right, yeah,
It seems like it would be permissible from a stewardship standpoint if you approached it from
Uh-huh.
that way. I don't know. Instead of making it overtly, labeling it Christian, stewardship is a concept that is in Christianity, but it goes beyond that to business.
Right.
and
right,
Other areas.
that's,
as well.
that's what I liked about Noah is because, so it's written by an atheist or agnostic.
Mm,
But when they mention God, they call him creator, and it's not like God told me to do this, right? It
uh-huh.
wasn't that very like, I must be obedient, but but he's still, the words, you can be interpreted of that, but it's also like God wants this to happen, or the creator, like this is how we were created to be,
Right,
right? So it's just wording simply, that it's not this direct, here's what we need to do because God said so. But it's a more this like deeper meaning of we were created by the creator to do this.
Mhm.
And just that subtle, I think that subtle difference is to me more palatable than.
And is that also what's more threatening to folks?
And then you don't have to use. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably, because it opens it up to. Oh my goodness, it opens it up to Allah. It opens it up
Oh,
to,
yeah,
all the other religions,
It's
they
less
have
clear
their God.
exactly who God
You
is.
know?
Is this the
Yeah.
God of Jesus Christ or not?
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Evan Almighty, right? It's God is what, Morgan Freeman or something, right?
It's Morgan Freeman.
That's the only,
It
I
is
think,
awesome.
same thing in both films.
Yeah, that's
Bruce
what,
Almighty
that's how it's
is
connected,
because
yeah.
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman's God in both. But I could, as soon as you start creating an actor playing God that doesn't seem, like Santa Claus, then it's like,
Right.
oh, wait a minute. I don't know about this version of God, yeah.
Freeman was created in the image of God too, so.
True. True. Hmm. All right, I'm still wrecking my brain if there's a Christian FernGully, Maybe it's the wrong question. Maybe it's like, if it says Christian on it, then it's gonna,
But no, but like, what does it mean to be Christian, right?
Yeah,
Like Christian
yeah.
is Christ-like. So does this
Okay.
show like how Christ was act? Then it's Christian.
uh-huh,
Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be done by like a Christian organization
Right,
in order for it to be like,
Right.
and blessed by the Pope.
right.
To,
Well,
to be labeled
And I
Christian.
appreciate that. I know you
Or
appreciate it.
the Southern Baptist community.
Well, right,
you
and I
know,
think a
like-
lot of folks do, but my question is there a way that you can write something that the Southern Baptist Convention would approve, right? I mean, is there a way to say, how do you kind of find that space that's the what's the blind side or
See, that's
fireproof?
See, that's
or-
because I'm jaded, and the only way that the Southern Baptist Committee will approve of it is if someone does the Romans Road literally within the film somewhere.
Well,
Right.
you have to, you definitely have to get around, it goes back to the politicization.
Politicization.
Yeah,
Of things.
Yeah.
If you could find, like The Blind Side, you
yeah.
could find a way to get around that, to get to the heart of the matter without having flaming liberalism involved.
The problem is, to me, it's like, here's the earth, look, it's falling apart, we should fix it. Like, what, like, if we can't get that,
Right.
then
What
it's
don't
also
you
like,
understand?
I also feel kind of hopeless in that, like, also COVID, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, here's this obvious thing, here's these very easy things we can do to limit the spread of a virus,
Right.
and people still decided, nope, my body, my
Right.
choice.
Yeah.
Or
And-
that it doesn't exist.
Or that it's not there, right?
Right,
Right, and
Which is the environment
which is
issue
climate
too,
denier
because they will
thing
say,
too,
oh,
exactly.
there's no climate change.
And I guess that's
there's
partly
no-"
my question. Is there a way, I mean, this is the Katharine Hayhoe argument, right?
Oh,
She's
yeah.
the one that's tried to say, part of my job is to help to help evangelicals to understand how this
Yeah.
is a Christian calling, right?
Mhm.
And so can maybe I need to call Katharine Hayhoe and who's the Veggie Tales
And
guy?
And Phil Vischer.
Phil Vischer, and see if they
Phil
can like
Yeah,
get
like
together.
there you
and-
go.
Yeah,
There you go.
collaboration.
Because
There
I'm
we
sure
go.
they'll both pick up my phone call when I call them. But right, see what I'm saying though? Is there a way
Yes.
to speak
Yes,
to
yes,
that?
yes.
yeah,
I think Phil Vischer's done a great job.
he's done a
Oh,
great
Tell
one
him
with
the
racism.
story.
Absolutely, right.
Well, he
When
did
it
with
comes-
racism.
And then, but he
systemic
comes from a
racism.
perspective of, let's
Yeah.
open our eyes to some of the stuff going on in the world and not just small.
He does a good job of walking that
Yeah,
fine line
right.
between both.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, okay, not environmental, I don't think, I'm trying to remember the whole plot of it, but Madame Blueberry,
Hmm.
if you remember Madame Blueberry, I mean, there's a butterfly involved that lands on
Uh-huh.
something, and
Right.
it like sets off this whole.
Well, yeah, her whole
revolt.
thing was like, she couldn't be content, she always had to buy stuff.
Oh,
And
really?
she lived in a tree house. And the,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right.
and the
the
tree
house
was
falls
filled
over
with
Yes.
so much
Yeah.
stuff that eventually fell.
And the
fell over.
butterfly is what tips it off.
Oh,
And then
right.
eventually,
right. The
eventually a
straw that
butterfly
breaks
lands
the
on it.
camel's
and,
back.
Yes.
breaks
And this is what biblical story?
I don't know.
This was before there was early films. There was like two parts, and one was a direct like
Oh, okay.
biblical
Oh, yeah.
story, and then another one was just, you know, good morals about
Right, I mean, there's a
don't be
couple
greedy.
parables that it connects to, right?
Yeah.
About the, build barns and bigger barns and bigger
Oh, yeah.
barns, kind of that.
That's true.
parable.
Yeah,
That's probably it.
Yeah. Huh. All right. So now we're done.
That's really intriguing to put those two together.
Yeah.
There's after you had mentioned her in one of your sermons, I went out and kind of researched her, and she's got a series of
Yeah.
videos on YouTube.
Oh, does she? Okay.
Yeah.
I know her books, I don't know her videos so
Oh,
well.
yeah, they're really good. I didn't watch a ton of them, but I watched a few, and
Right,
right. Kind of started me thinking that on our website in the earthworks section, that maybe we should have a resources section.
Oh, yeah, I like that. Yeah,
Link to some of that stuff.
right, right. And again, I mean, I think there's value to seeing how do we create, again, I mean, maybe I'm not a huge fan necessarily of the blind side in some of those, but I think it speaks to an audience, right? And it speaks in a way that says, hey, there's value in, role models that are in the church or role models that are Christian, and this is the things that they believe, right? So is there a way to create an entertainment vehicle that says, here is a Christian, here is a church leader who values creation care, right?
Yeah, it builds a bridge.
Right, right.
Um,
Right. And I mean, you use the phrase on the nose, and sometimes that is too on the nose
Yeah.
when you've got, super obvious Christian guy
Well,
that comes in and says,
I think-
Jesus wants me to do this.
Well, I think the other hard part is with any story that you make a hero or something, you tend to have to then make a villain.
Yeah, right.
And then
Right.
it villainizes whatever that, and it's like, is it possible to make a movie or a film that just has the hero? Without, or the villain isn't another person, or like, atheists don't understand,
Right,
or
right.
that can't, or,
Right.
but it's like.
Right, and on the flip side, right? I mean, the Evan Almighty's and what's the other one that Leonardo DiCaprio was in fairly recently? That
Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up, right? I mean, so the bad guys are very clear in those kind of
Right.
movies. I'm not seeing
Yeah.
the Don't Look Up, but I know kind of what it's about. And it's like, so
Which is pretty much the entire
corporations
world.
and
Yes.
the bad guys are just as clear,
Uh-huh.
but they're different, right? They're different bad guys.
Mhm.
I think you would have to make it, if you were to put the most Christian stamp on it, is you could relate to every one of the bad guys, and they're all sympathetic. And the real, it shows that the real villainy is a system and not the people of the system,
Right.
right? I mean, you can call it sin,
Yeah,
right? Like,
that's good.
the enemy
Right.
actually is sin, it's
Right.
not people.
Isn't that FernGully? I mean, even
Yeah.
the goofy sandwich eating guys, right? In the end, it's like, oh, well, maybe we should,
We should
not cut
probably
down
do something
trees.
about this.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little redemption there.
Yeah.
Well, and the bad guy is this disembodied,
Right.
smoke monster.
Right.
That,
Yeah.
So
Sin.
that's how, there you
Sin,
go. That's
smoke
a
monster,
good
right? Like, I
embodiment
mean,
of sin.
I think that's where I just don't like a lot of those movies. Is 'cause-
Yeah.
And then they write Facing the Giants, right? They had to make the other team this very selfish guy, just this very villainous guy. It's like, what does that teach us about sports?
Yeah.
That the teammates we
Right.
face, or
right.
no, it's just,
It's never
I mean,
that.
the
It's
idea of we're
simplistic.
all really on the same side of everything, we're all humans.
Right. Right.
What is the villain? Not who is the villain, right? How do we?
Right. It's not that the guy wearing the black hat versus the guy wearing the white hat, right? It's not that obvious.
Brief tangent.
Mhm.
in Don't Look Up,
Uh-huh.
Timothy Chalamet
Oh,
gives the most beautiful prayer I
Oh,
have
really?
ever heard
Yeah.
at the dinner table.
really?
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. If you watch it for no other reason,
To
watch it for the
for that.
Timothy Chalamet prayer.
Okay, that's the guy, the Dune guy, right?
Yeah,
The guy in Dune?
yeah,
I think so. I haven't seen Dune.
which is.
All
See,
right,
this
we're
is-
gonna.
This is the hard thing. is, like,
We gotta work on this now.
I've got so much, like, the problem is with all of those, like, there's research you have to do beforehand. Like, I have to read Dune in order to see the movie.
Yeah, probably not.
Oh,
No,
I know,
No.
I didn't.
I thought with the
haven't read it.
films, like the Star Trek films, I should probably like know who all these characters are before I watch the movie, because
Maybe.
it would make sense to understand the
Maybe,
character.
even though the movies do a pretty good job of creating what is it, the 4 quadrant idea, and you don't, it's for the geeks,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a little bit of, it's like Marvel, right? There's a little bit of, for the geeks, okay, here's every little bit of backstory and Easter eggs and details, but you also have to know the people who have not seen a single Marvel movie, they could at least still be entertained, even if they miss some things. And
Yeah,
the Star Trek movies were like
They
that,
do a
right?
good job with that.
The
yeah.
originals.
Yeah, but as the 5 in me, like, I want to
Oh.
know, I want
Right.
to be
Are you
able
a
to see
5?
those things. I'm a strong 5 wing.
You're a strong 5.
Strong
Oh,
5
wow.
wing, yeah,
Yeah.
4 was a strong 5 wing. So, yeah, so it's like, if there's a stuff that's there for me to know,
Uh-huh.
that the director is telling me, I need to know that.
Yes.
Like, I can't, like, there
miss
are
the
certain
details.
films that I like to go in cold.
Yeah,
But if there's a history of it beforehand, I wanna know that before
right.
going
Right.
in.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back now to the Star Trek movies. I didn't watch the TV shows
I could probably also give him,
before I watched
Oh,
the
this is
movies.
probably
watched
giving him
all
too
of
much
it.
credit,
Yeah,
Right.
Like,
watch some.
but,
Yeah,
but yeah, that's.
I don't mean, yeah, I mean, I'd watched 1 or 2, but I wasn't like a huge,
Also, they kind of came out,
Right.
like, they're also like just before my time.
right.
Cause it's a lot of dialogue based Star Trek, like the
Yeah, it is.
that I just
Yeah,
thought it was
sure.
boring when I was a
Mhm.
kid.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and some of it, I mean, looking back on it, some of it is a little cheesy, you know,
Yeah.
looking at it, but.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, what's his name? William Shatner.
Oh, my,
Some of the
yeah.
overacting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I saw maybe 1 or 2 episodes of the original one, and I couldn't get into it. Of course, they're the very first ones.
Right,
Like
yeah.
1964 or
Yeah.
3.
Well, even the first movies were like were they late 70s or early 80s? For Star Trek.
80s, I'm not sure
Maybe
about.
late 70s. Yeah, but anyway, okay, so that is probably 4 tangents there. So let me go back to the Timothy Chalamet. So Chalamet, sorry. I was like,
Chalamet, it's hard to say.
Chandelier.
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 So in the prayer, is it treated with respect, or is like,
Oh, very
oh,
much.
this silly guy
No.
who prays?
He is, so his character is this kind of surfer dude,
Uh-huh.
like, you know, chill.
Yeah,
But when he gets to that prayer,
yeah.
it is totally respectful,
Huh.
totally
Yeah.
on point.
Yeah.
And everybody just kind of looks at, that's what I remember anyway.
Yeah.
People around the table are like, prayer.
I mean, because I guess part of my point is it's kind of like the Francis Collins stuff, right? I mean, Francis
Oh, yeah.
Collins, the book you guys are reading is this understanding of this guy who's like, all of my Christian friends think I'm crazy for being a scientist, and all my scientist friends think I'm crazy for being a Christian. And I think you get that some in some of these movies, right? Is all of the people who want to talk about environmentalism will treat Christians as either the bad guys or no respect or completely ignored in the conversation, and vice versa. Those that are Christian will treat environmentalists as the crazy wackos. And so, is there a place where those two live together?
Right. Well, and maybe part of, and I don't know how you do this, but helping them see that they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
And I don't know, that's always been obvious to me, but it just hasn't been to a lot of folks. And so
Yeah.
I think that's a
It's hard.
frustration
to see
for me to
that-
say, but look, it's just, see, it's right there.
Right, it's hard to see that middle ground could exist.
Yeah,
There is validity to both sides.
Well, the problem, I think, is people have done their own either research or study or that they've narrowed their way of like, here's how it needs to be done.
yeah,
And if someone else comes in and says, no, it should be like this, there's no like, it's just more like, well, you're wrong.
yeah,
I've studied this.
yeah.
Like, well, I've studied it too, you know, like,
Right.
Well, and it kind of goes back to the evolution thing. I think sometimes Christians are like, why should I care about this? It's, there's not gonna be any consequences. We're all going to heaven and the earth is gonna fall away, and why should we care
Right,
about
right.
maintaining it? And the evolution scientists are, they see it as being an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's similar. It seems like they butt heads in similar ways.
Right.
Those two camps.
Okay. I'll continue my hunt for the, what was it, McGee and me, the McGee and me episode
I was-
of environmentalism.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, not Mac and me.
Not Mac and me, not McGee and me. Or I remember several years ago, did a study on Gospel according to the Simpsons.
Oh,
And the book made the point that most cartoons, really most, this is an old show now, but most TV, besides the Simpsons, just pretty much ignored Christians and ignored the church. Just that there were no Christian perspective. No, I mean, again, you could say, okay, they're Christ-like perspectives, but there were no Christian characters except for the Simpsons, where they were, talking about the church and talking about Reverend Lovejoy and talking about, that kind of stuff all the time. Ned Flanders, and not always in a great light, but but at least they're talking about, and I think there's some of that too in a lot of the movies, right? It's just like they're just silent in terms of here's this world of evangelical Christianity, and we'll make our own movies, and everybody else will make movies that never the twain shall meet. And so, is there?
well, in Christian fiction or,
Right.
Christian romance.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like somehow that gets all sanitized
Yeah.
or supposedly gets all sanitized.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you label it Christian and.
Yeah.
It seems like it makes it less useful for the rest of humanity.
Right, and I'm not one to say that
That's
we should only be reading stuff that has Christian characters in it, but I wonder if there's a way for folks who really want some of that simplicity to name it to name some kind of creation care principles
Well,
in
that's true.
those simple terms.
To inject some of that into
Right,
that world,
Right.
that more sanitized world.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of like with you. I'm fine with it being messy and finding Christ figures in FernGully, right? But at the same time, I know not everybody's ready to jump into that kind of interpretation.
I think there's a fear of opening oneself up to
Right.
influences
The
or
New Age, right?
Yep,
Fairies.
yeah, I'm also jaded because a lot of it is like, like you still need like artistic, creative ideas or portraying things in very well done ways. And a lot of times, to me, at least my history of, well, we're telling people who Christ is, so that should be enough.
Yeah.
Like, that's the art. And we don't really need to actually put effort into, making it well done.
Right,
Or,
yeah.
right, because it's all about the message. It's not necessarily about how we give it. It's like the acting isn't, is substandard, and like everything's like, again, on the nose, or too just
The writing is
blatant, like the
bad,
writing's
yeah,
bad,
yeah,
just the cinematography, like
yeah.
good, strong cinematography.
Right.
And again, that's a bias. I mean, that's not, and that's a gross generalization,
Yeah.
but
You appreciate the cinematic stuff with FernGully? I mean, it's a kid's movie, but
and it's like the 90s, so it's, like,
yeah,
it's definitely in
Probably
this.
before much
just
CGI,
kind of-
right,
really early graphics.
yeah.
I'm trying to think of other films that were like, it's like The Rescuers and.
Uh-huh.
What other films are like? Let's see.
Well, I mean, there were a bunch of Disney, right? Isn't that the same era of Lion King and Little Mermaid?
Yeah.
and,
Yeah,
Those were maybe a little later,
Yeah.
but
yeah.
this is 92. I think those were after my kids were.
Oh, were they?
born.
Okay.
Yeah,
Lion King was like 95.
Aladdin.
yeah, that would have been.
But it's not bad. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
It's
good.
Right, right.
A lot of it's also just my personal preference on how a film should, like,
Mhm.
you should show rather than tell, right?
Yeah, that's a
Like-
good point.
Like, you can't
That's a good point.
just tell people I'm a Christian and then like, but show like what they think and how they behave, and,
Right,
explain things deeper in that way and not just rely on just what
yeah,
the label says.
Like the principle of let your kids catch you doing the right
Yeah.
thing
Yeah,
is
Yeah.
the best way to teach.
and I think I share that bias in most of the ways. I guess my curiosity is there anybody out there that's also telling, right? That's overt about it? For those that want the overt, is there a way out there?
yeah.
Or a way into some kind of creation?
Think of any.
I don't know. All right.
I think the way to do it really is honest. Like, so thinking back is like, okay, well, relate to Theodore Roosevelt,
Uh-huh.
right? Because that'll hit the conservative side, but then also founded the park system. Like, and so explain like how, and let them know like, hey, like the values you have about things are also the values that values that you hold dear are also the same values that the people who are trying to save the earth also hold dear. And here's why they're doing what they're doing.
Kind of old school
And it's-
conservationism, basically.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, most of them, hey, you were a Boy Scout, here's what the Boy Scouts were meant to do,
Mhm,
like, and here's what we're trying to do, like.
Right. Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's all we're trying to do, is just follow these leave no trace. Remember in Boy Scouts when we told leave no trace and you picked up your campsites, like, this is just, this is, leave no trace is why we don't want, coal mines and stuff, because you can't like pick up your trash afterwards, and now we have to leave barrels.
Yeah. Coal companies that are
Going-
leaving a trace.
Going that type of
Yeah.
route.
Yeah, no, I like that.
And relating and saying,
On a larger scale, on a
Right.
much larger
Right,
scale.
right.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Chase.
and
Chase
again,
up too far.
saying it's the company, not the workers, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the whole thing, is like, you're
Yeah.
taking my job,
Yeah, that's right.
right? Most of it
Right.
isn't really about, it's like, they talked last time, it's like, they understand that what they're doing is hurting the planet, but I'm stuck here, I don't have
Mhm.
another option.
Yeah.
And so relating to that and saying sympathetically, yeah, we understand, like maybe, here's some other jobs we could do,
Mhm.
it's a lot harder than that, but like, just making it understand that like, and it's hard to write it cut and dry, because it's not.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
and so like the whole idea of like making it, it almost has to be a series. The first episode or movie is like, yeah, it is nebulous.
Mhm.
Because if you make it too strong, here's what it needs to be, you're missing something.
Right.
Mhm.
And maybe there's no way to do both. Maybe there's no way to.
This is also my fourness coming in and be like, there is no answer, and it's okay. Also the fiveness, like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
still trying to find all the answers.
Right.
Like, it's like, and I'm okay with it. Like, it doesn't have to be all, the puzzle pieces don't all have to be
Yeah,
there, they all
right,
don't have to
right,
fit
right.
perfectly, and so, yeah, it's interesting.
Good conversation.
Next month is the book is called The Four Lost Cities. It's by Annalee Newitz, or it might be Newitz, I'm not exactly sure. A Secret History of the Urban Age, and I believe, if I remember right, it's kind of a history of four different kind of empires or cities that kind of have the rise and fall.
Have you seen that? Have you read that one, Marcia?
I didn't go in and get it yet. I hope it's available when I do. May not be.
Yeah, I've not heard of this one at all. Cool.
Yeah, so that's next month. I can't remember the date. It's always the last Wednesday, the 26th of October. That's the day.
Cool.
Oh, read the book, find it at the library. Use Libra or some local bookstore.
Raven.
Stay away from Amazon, please.
Yeah, we'll see. See if Raven has that.
Yeah. All right.
Libro.fm, is that the?
Yeah, so
audiobook
Libro
one that
is
contributes to
a
what it says?
it's an audiobook, but you can
Oh.
tie it to your local bookstore. So when you rent or
Oh.
buy it, you're buying it from, like, it's kind of the front,
Oh,
but you're
interesting.
buying, like, the money goes to the bookstore. So you can choose the Raven
That's awesome.
or
Cool.
there's several bookstores that are connected to it.
Like it.
Yep.
Right. Thank you, man.
Yep.